What is up, guys? Deadset here. Happy New Year! As every new beginning, it is time for changes, and the changes that I'll talk about today are those of the Demon Hunters in patch 2.12 PTR. Stay a while and listen. First of all, let me clarify where I stand in the current heated debate among fans of the relaxed live M6 and the intense 2.12 version. Personally, I enjoy the new set more than the old one. It harkens back to the traditional Demon Hunter image of an archer vaulting around his enemies and delivering precise blows, with the mechanized sentries being assistants rather than the major players of the build. With the way I like to play the game, I am all for active gameplay and putting out the big numbers myself. That being said, I fully recognize the merit in having relaxed builds in the game. Having a set where your own safety is the only major part of the gameplay, with barely any aiming, resource and cooldown management involved, might not be attractive to top-tier players. But it's attractive to a segment of the player base who, for objective or subjective reasons, flock to a less clicky playstyle. One might also ask, with such a heavy focus on fantasies when it comes to set execution, is the engineer fantasy preserved if the focus is shifted from the sentry back to the player? And with the Shadow's Mantle set still being the laughingstock of the set drops, and Natalia not much further ahead, shouldn't they embody the archery archetype better than the previously pet-centric Marauder? Nevertheless, Marauder is likely not reverting, so I will focus on current PTR state commentary. Sentries only firing when you do shifts the breakpoint chasing meta from attack speed items like Taskers to resource cost reduction boosters like Cinder Coat and Pride's Fall. I have long lamented RCR falling off the radar, and even being outright undesirable for certain Crusader, Monk and Barbarian synergies. I still maintain that either Topaz or Emerald in Helm should grant resource cost reduction as a replacement of the stale and unattractive Gold Find and Magic Find bonuses. It is good that Pride's Fall finally finds a home, but that being said, I would prefer if the unique effect was a bit harder to lose. For example, only falling off from physical attacks. As it currently stands, certain elite packs can render Pride's Fall a dead slot with no meaningful counterplay. And as happy as I am that a cash legendary becomes an item of worth, I'm also sad that another one is flat out murdered. Along with a lot of what made the Ball Lightning build powerful, the Hell Trapper one-handed crossbow will once again become salvage material. Understandably, it should not exceed the absolute maximum of 5 sentries that the rucksack is capable of, but there's no reason it shouldn't be an alternative, if RNG-based source of up to 5 sentries. This will open the quiver slot, which as it currently stands on the PTR is reserved for the Bombardier's rucksack, and nothing else comes even close. With no automatic offense at the hunter's disposal, so that he focuses on survival and evasion like on the live servers, the continued exposure to danger and the shift towards resource cost reduction, a glaring flaw, is once again in the spotlight. It was never truly gone, but the old Marauder somewhat circumvented it, and now it's back in full force. Of course, I'm talking about the lackluster Demon Hunter defensive skill options. Let me go down the list. Smokescreen took another hit. It's not only expensive on discipline with nary a way to manage it, but it's also got an increased cooldown in patch 2.12. Shadow Power is still doing too little for a cost of 14 discipline per cast, and while I would love to use Gloom, which is one of my favorite skills from vanilla, the damage reduction is about 15% less than what it should be to even talk about taking up a skill slot. I also wish Caltrops was a bit more usable. It is very reasonably priced for its relatively low power, but is unfortunately crippled by dropping at your feet. If it functioned more closely to Spike Trap and dropped at cursor location, I would gladly give it a second chance. As it currently stands, moving in to drop defensive Caltrops and then backtracking is too taxing on time and dangerous to execute. What is left is Vault, reasonably priced displacement tool that you'll see in abundance on the leaderboard, especially with the Tumble rune. As it currently stands, it's a wonderful Swiss knife of a skill that allows you to reposition, outrange affixes when needed, and get places faster if need be. It should not, however, be your only choice. Since I mentioned discipline management, I would like to express my concern over Night Stalker's rework. Losing the only reliable source of discipline restoration and the only artifact left of the neat Night Stalker and punishment dynamic negates the 2.1 intention of preserving discipline as the pure defense and utility resource. It is now stuck in an awkward role of a pool that you use too much or too little of, with few attractive spenders for it, and few attractive spenders being the problem all along. Observing the current dynamic, I would like to point out that Demon Hunters seem to be the only class hungering for both cooldown reduction and resource cost reduction at the same time, forcing more glass cannon, I'll get one shot anyway decisions on the player. Shoulders are a prime example, with more and more hunters adopting resource cost reduction and cooldown reduction along with main stat and sentry bonus as their role of choice. The underlying issue is, of course, the gluttonous cluster arrow, the hardest hitting skill with the Marauder sentry setup. Elemental arrow, chakram, and even multi-shot can't compete with the bouquet of rocket synergy cluster arrow is capable of, and need a little more percentage love and maybe a few more rockets thrown in for good measure. As a final critique, the current Demon Hunter gameplay struck me as somewhat disjointed and uneven once you hit greater rifts above level 40. 3 entire hatred cycles of natural reserve plus preparation pop plus companion pop stop being enough for certain elites and rift situations, resulting in awkward downtimes of pure generator spam. This can be mitigated at least a little bit by removing the clunky hatred cost on the sentries that further strains your hatred management. To further smooth out the current gameplay, I suggest increasing the sentry charges accordingly if the hero is carrying a rucksack, to avoid the unpleasant ramp-up time until you reach your full burst potential. A counter at the bottom to display the number of currently active sentries would also be greatly appreciated. In short, 2.12 Demon Hunters are still an extremely powerful class that makes a welcome comeback to the archery type gameplay and will again move close to the top of the charts because of Rift RNG. Stumbling upon a Rift with density and monster mechanics that don't expose the hunter to damage spikes like Thunderstorm and the infamous Jailer allow him to output high amounts of DPS in relative safety and will be key for high placement. That doesn't necessarily translate into smooth gameplay, however, and with awkward ramp-up time, hatred management issues, and really no attractive defensive choices, the class risks to become impenetrable to all but the most devout. And that about sums it up for my feelings on the Demon Hunter in the current iteration of the 2.12 PTR. If you enjoyed my thoughts, I would appreciate your subscription to my channel. Talk to me on Twitter and Facebook that are linked below. See me live at twitch.tv/Deadset. I leave you with a little more greater Rift footage, and I'll see you guys next time.